The Daniel fast is one of the most used and misunderstood fast in today's American culture. I'm sure that if you ask somebody what you can and cannot have on the Daniel fast, you'll likely get a plethora of different options and variations. So today we're going to look at Daniel 10 and Daniel 1 to see what exactly we can and cannot have and answer questions like, can you have fish? Can you have eggs? Can you drink coffee? Can you eat honey? The Daniel fast at its core is a partial fast, meaning that you give up some food and drink options for a predetermined amount of time. Now, you're not fasting everything, you're just fasting some things. We see the first evidence of this, or the first rendition of Daniel's fast, in Daniel chapter 1. The Israelites were taken captive into Babylon, and Daniel was one of these chosen kids to serve in the king's services. And in verse 8, Daniel resolved not to defile himself from the food from the king's table. Ashpenaz was actually somebody who was over Daniel and taking care of him, and was like, man, listen, I can't let you do that because you'll be malnourished, and then I'll get in trouble as the guy that's looking over you. In verse 12, we see that Daniel actually convinced Ashpenaz to test him for 10 days by only giving them vegetables to eat and water to drink. And I actually want to take a look at the word used here that we get translated in the Bible to vegetables. The word actually is a ro'ah, which means something sown that is a vegetable. The majority of translations translate this to mean vegetables. And you may be reading the King James Version, which says pulse, which is actually something that's an edible seed, like a legume plant. So if you think of like pea pods and edamame, soybeans, various things like that, that's actually what it gets translated to. And he also says nothing but water. The second rendition of Daniel's fast is in Daniel chapter 10. And it's kind of like Daniel chapter 1, but it varies just slightly. So if we take a look at the scripture, you'll see that Daniel chapter 10, verse 1 through 3, Daniel had a vision concerning the future while fasting. And then in verse 2 and 3, we actually see pieces of the Daniel fast. So it says, verse 2, he mourned for 3 weeks. So there's a time period. We have 21 days. In verse 3, he said, I did not eat any choice food, and adds, no meat or wine touched my lips. And he didn't anoint himself with oil or lotion. And I thought that was interesting because most of the time we just think it's fruits, vegetables, water, and all that stuff. But here he's actually denying himself from oil and lotion. A couple different words you should know, and that's lechem. So he's saying, I didn't feed or consume anything that was desirable, is what verse 3 is telling us. So when he's saying I ate no choice food, it's actually another thing that is translated to bread. And so he's saying I ate nothing that was like desirable, no bread, anything like that. And then the word translated meat says, it actually says flesh. So in my opinion, when people are saying, well, you can't have fish and you can't have eggs, to me, the translation used here, the wording that Daniel uses, it actually means flesh. So to me, that would be anything that's animal related. So things like egg and fish are out. And then he says, no wine touched my lips. And the word used here, it's translated wine, but it's actually yayin, and it means a fermented drink and an implied intoxication. Here's a breakdown of what Daniel 1 and Daniel 10, how they stack up and compare to each other. So in the first one, we see in Daniel chapter 1, it was vegetables only and water only, and there was no other restrictions, just vegetables and water. It makes no mention of fruit, but remember the word here is a seed sown plant. So to me, I think fruit's okay. And then chapter 10 says no choice food and no meat. And the word in there is actually like a baked bread, but it also implies something desirable. And so no choice food, no bread, and no meat. And then it says no wine and no fermented drink. And then no lotions or oil. To me, I would just say which one is right for you. And I would just remind you that anytime you do a fast, that's between you and God. You may be doing this corporately with your church body, with your local church, or you may be joining in with your community, other things. To me, it comes down to, what does your walk with Christ look like? It's something that it should be personal to you, and it should cost you something. we're not doing a full fast here. The Daniel fast at its core, like I said, is a partial fast, meaning you're giving up some things, but you still are consuming food. So if you're torn up between, Sister Smith who's eating salsa and you don't feel like you should be eating salsa because it's store bought or whatever, then that's between her and God, and that's between you and God. If you feel convicted about eating salsa or drinking almond milk, then don't drink it or don't eat it. If you have a conviction about something, then don't consume that. That's the Lord working on your heart. If we were to go back and say, well, the King's table, if we can go back and say, I'm not going to have this because it would be on the quote unquote King's table, I think we'd all agree, the majority of us watching this video, I don't have a garden in my backyard year round, just full of different vegetables and fruits and things like that. So to me, having a cup of coffee and buying store-bought vegetables and things that may be considered exotic fruits or whatever, that's okay with me. What I would do is I would stick to as many raw fruits and vegetables as possible and cook them in a way that helps. Cook them in a way that is appetizing, and helps you stick to it. That's something that you should stick to. We see in Daniel 1 it was 10 days, and in Daniel 10 it was 21 days or 3 weeks. And so do what helps you further your relationship with Christ. If it's going to help you draw closer to God, then do it. If you're getting hung up on, man, I really am craving this, and that's all you're thinking about, you should fight through that. But if it's 21 days of just misery, then I think you should double check what you're fasting and why you're fasting it. Well, there you have it, guys. I appreciate you checking out the video. I hope you did learn something. Let me know in the comments below, what was your actual takeaway from this? Did you know that there were actually multiple Daniel fasts in the Bible? The best things that you've found to help you curb your appetite when you're having those crazy cravings. Thanks again for checking out the video. My name is Matt Willie. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content just like this. I'll talk to you later.